Hey yogis, Mackenzie Fly here, mom, yogapreneur, teacher trainer, retreat leader, and your guide to master your yoga teaching. This podcast is your weekly dose of actionable wisdom and candid chats with industry experts. Learn to connect deeper, weave yogic magic, and lead by example. Full disclosure, I'm still mastering it too, but together we'll skyrocket your impact and income. Hit subscribe and let's grow, one episode at a time. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to MYYT, where you are learning to level up your yoga teaching one masterful class at a time. I am so excited. I'm about to leave in just under 2 weeks for my final yoga retreat of the year that I am co-facilitating through my retreat company called Vortex Retreats. And this is the third year in a row that we are going back to Sedona, Arizona, because it's so popular. It is such an easy sell, and it's not difficult to convince people to come to Sedona for a yoga retreat. The energy there is perfect for experiences like this, and I can't wait to get back there because Sedona is so beautiful in the fall. The foliage, like the leaves are turning, they're like a deep red, and the red rocks, it's just absolutely stunning. And I just checked the weather. It's going to be a comfortable 70 to 80 degrees, which will be a huge relief and reprieve from the heat that is still here in Las Vegas, which is where I'm coming to you from. It's still so dang hot here. So I'm excited to take a break and to just get out and go on the incredible hikes and walks up to the energy vortexes, which is actually what our yoga retreat is called. It's called Vortex. And the theme, or the kind of idea that we're weaving through the whole experience, is the chakra system. And what a perfect place to explore and learn about the chakras than in Sedona, Arizona, because they have the energy vortexes there. So I know it'll all be so heightened, and I'm just getting so pumped. So I wanted to create this episode right here as sort of a facilitator's guide, or a facilitator's GRWM. That's the acronym of Get Ready With Me. And then behind the scenes, so BTS prep. So what this conversation isn't if you're wanting to plan a retreat and you need help kind of mapping out the itinerary of like figuring out what you want to do every day. That's not this talk. This also isn't how to figure out the financial part of it, of how do you price the retreat. This is assuming you've already done that and you've sold out your retreat and you're about to leave to go facilitate the retreat. Here's some of my most hot takes or helpful tips to how to get your energy right so that you can show up and hold incredible space for a transformative experience for all of your participants and guests. So that's what I want to talk to you about today, because it's a really sweet spot to be in just about 2 weeks before your retreat. And there's so many things that you can do to prime yourself that you show up feeling incredible, because the better you feel, the better leader you are going to be. All right, so last year we went to Sedona around this time, so October of 2023, and I was actually 8 months pregnant. I was just looking back at all the pictures and I'm like, oh my God, I was about to pop. I cannot believe that I led a retreat that late in my pregnancy, but I remember feeling really, really good. And actually, got back from Sedona, and maybe 2 weeks after that, it must have not even been that long. Maybe a couple days after I got back, I led a free 5-day challenge for yoga teachers that was called Mat to Mat. And it was all about how to get your classes more full, how to pack your classes using and leveraging the skill of storytelling. So this is a challenge I usually run once a year. I'm planning to do it in January of 2025, the next round. But anyway, this was last year. So 2023, this was the first time I was running the challenge. And then right after that, I opened the doors on my signature program, and the sales from that signature program actually supported me and my family and made it possible for me to take a 3-month maternity leave. So I'm just reflecting on that, because that was kind of the first really successful kind of launch that I had, and made me recognize the power of creating offers outside the studio. And I'm so glad that I spent all of that time creating the program and launching it when I did, because I really obviously wanted to be able to step back and figure out being a mom for the first time. So as I'm reflecting on last year in Sedona, it was just such a sweet, exciting time because I was so pregnant. I was planning the free challenge. I knew that I was launching the course, and it just felt my life was like about to change. And it has so much this entire year. I am just in awe of how much growth I personally have felt. And I'm just so excited to go back because I know that it will feel really full circle, and that so many other revelations and realizations might come. We had such a special group last year. A lot of the women, it ended up being all women, which was not a prerequisite. It must have been something in our messaging and marketing that attracted women. But we had a lot of women who had went through our yoga teacher training program earlier that year. So it had this really sweet sort of reunion feel to it. And the participants who weren't part of yoga teacher training, we had a pair of sisters and then another woman who's, I think she's been on 3 of our retreats. So she's like a recurring person. And so the energy of the people that we had there just felt so friendly, fun, welcoming, and warm, which is so in alignment with the energy of Sedona. But why I bring that up is that Sedona is interesting in the sense that they really safeguard the, how do I say, I guess the environment of Sedona. I think they have very strict codes of how big buildings can be, how tall houses can be, because they don't want it to stick out like a sore thumb against the incredible natural scenery of Sedona with the red rocks and the gemstone sort of vibe. So if you go to Sedona, like the biggest example I can think of is that the McDonald's, the M, instead of the golden arches, it's like teal arches. They have certain like color palettes, certain heights that the architecture have to abide by to maintain more of a natural look and feel. And so with that being said, to host a really large yoga retreat while Sedona, like it screams yoga retreat, it doesn't actually have that many facilities for yoga retreats. So my business partner and I, we kind of went the Airbnb route. So we rent just like this giant, and I'm putting giant in air quotes because it's still like, it's big, but everything in Sedona is kind of small. Sedona is like one road basically. So just be mindful of that, I guess, if you're thinking about hosting a retreat there, that you might need to think more like sleepover vibes, more intimate vibe. It's not like the luxury retreats that you will run in Tulum. But on the flip side, because of that, that means that your retreat overhead as a facilitator might be not that high, which is really good because your profit margin is going to be much, much bigger. So I say this because as a retreat company, our Sedona retreat ends up being one of our bigger, like our better returns. We make more money with the Sedona retreats because the overhead cost isn't that much. Whereas, for example, we led our spring retreat in Tulum, and that cost us around $40,000 to book out 12 to 14 rooms for 7 days. Whereas having one Airbnb house in Sedona only costs us around $5,000. So it's much easier to make more money hosting a retreat in Sedona, but you need to make sure that the marketing is obviously really clear, that it's not sort of this like luxury experience, and make it clear that you're sharing, a house, and the bathroom situation obviously ends up being very different when you're in a house and like there's not bathrooms in every room. So it feels different. But if your people are up for it, it can be a really beautiful energy and experience. So just wanted to preface with that. Okay, so if before you go, what all is under the category of before you go? What can you do to get ready, and what's the behind the scenes of that? The first thing that I would encourage is that you pump up your people. Around 2 months to the retreat start date, begin to foster community and connection in whatever ways you can. Some examples of this and what we do in Rachaka is we create a countdown email series for our people that helps get them excited. So around 2 months out, we are reaching out to their email inbox and saying, yo, what up? Like, we're so excited. We wanted to drop in and provide you with the itinerary. So here's what you can expect. Then around a month before we send out, we pop back in the email and say, can you believe we're a month out? I know that you received your itinerary and you started thinking about the activities. We wanted to come to you today with a little packing list. And so we provide the packing list and so on and so forth with different sort of dripped content that's counting down. So if it's 2 months with the itinerary, 1 month with the packing list, then around the 2-week mark, we might send something like the property address and tell them to start to think about or like check in with their transportation. Like, are you driving? Are you flying? Like, get all those ducks in a row. A week out, we're probably sending something like the playlist so that they can get excited while they're packing and putting on this playlist while they're putting together all their things. So how can you like make it fun too? And continually pop back in their inbox to remind them that something fun is happening and to build that anticipation. Because how many of you know, and how many of you actually feel like when you're preparing for a vacation, that it's almost like the anticipation of the thing is almost better than the thing. It feels so good to like be excited. And so as much as you can do that as a facilitator, it's going to enhance your participants' experience if you can really get them super excited earlier. So you can do that through the email countdown series. Another way we do that is by around a week out, or sometimes a week and a half-ish, maybe 2 weeks, you can start a WhatsApp group chat and then put all of your people in there so that people are starting to get to know one another. They're starting to ask like, hey, what time are you getting in? Do you want to meet up at this coffee shop or grab like a bite? Or maybe some people do get in a little early and they're like, hey, I'm at the Bazaar Crystal Shop if anyone wants to meet me there. It helps break the ice and it makes your people feel like they're already fostering friendship before they actually get there. Because think about it, like retreats are interesting in the sense that it's like you get there and it's like full throttle for a couple days. It's just very intensive. So we found that that works really, really well is to start that WhatsApp group and get people talking. Then another thing that you really want to do is acknowledge all of the effort that it takes for people to put their life on freaking pause and come on a retreat. Like everybody is so busy all the time, and to take a few days away from your family, especially for people who have families, how much rearranging and rescheduling and just shifting that has to go on for them to be there. It's a really big deal for people to do a retreat. Retreats are also more high ticket offers. So it's a big deal that these people are deciding to do that. So make them feel like you acknowledge that it's a big deal. If you have the relationship or the rapport with the participant or the person that's coming to your retreat, it feels really nice just to like even reach out personally and just say, hey, I'm really excited that you decided to do this. I'm looking forward to spending time with you. And I recognize like what a big deal it is that you said yes. So just thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm so proud of you. Like, good job for choosing you. I see that. And I can't wait to just like spoil and pamper you. Personal messages, just don't underestimate personal messages, and they feel so good to give, and they also feel so good to receive. All right, so that's the first thing, is pump up your people. The second thing under before you go is to get your vibe right. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you as a facilitator need to get your butt to class. Take class or just practice as much as possible so that you feel as embodied as you can. This also might include, depending on your style of teaching, this might include like reading, or even I guess really before that, it's reviewing your itinerary, right? Like double checking what you've planned to do so that you know what classes are happening, what lectures you're leading, and brushing up all of that. Because if you're like me, who's constantly creating retreats, a yoga teacher training, online programs, teaching classes, you have a life. You might have made those plans many months ago when you were initially like booking out and mapping out the retreat experience. But it's like, I've slept since then. I don't remember what I said. So make sure you're checking at least 2 weeks before, like, okay, what in the world did I say? What am I doing? Do I need to revisit that book? In the instance of our Sedona retreat this year, our whole retreat, like I mentioned, is off the chakra system, but it's inspired by the book Anatomy of Spirit. This is by Carolyn Miss. Maybe you've read it. If you haven't, 1000% recommend it. It's really fascinating. She basically combines the chakra system from the East, then the tree of life, like the Judaic tree of life, with the 7 Christian sacraments. So sacraments are like rituals, vows, agreements. So this would be things like baptism, confirmation, confession. Super duper fascinating. In fact, I think I just asked my business partner, I was like, I'd really love to record one of the lectures that I'm leading while I'm there and then use it as like a little, I want to give it as a bonus episode for you all here on the podcast, just so that you can get some of that education too and kind of hear and feel what it's like to be on a retreat. Like maybe it inspires you and some of the things that you could teach, or it's just fascinating for you to learn. So I have intentions to do that. I'm really excited to teach on this topic. But sorry, I went on a tangent a little bit. But basically, I'm saying read and review the itinerary and the material. So for me, in this case, it was the Anatomy of Spirit book. I was like, okay, I need to pick up that book and remember why I love it. And it's so cute. I am the type of reader who highlights things, and then I have like a thing for office supplies. You too? Like Office Max, Office Depot. When I'm sad, if I just go into an Office Depot and buy like a new juicy pack of pens, I'm unstoppable. I'm like happy again. So anyway, my book has all these flags on the side. So I'm like looking back at the flags, remembering what I highlighted, and just getting re-inspired with this content so that it feels fresh, right? You don't want to show up and be like, and just doing this when you get there because it's too late. So at least 2 weeks before, start getting your vibe right, meaning you're taking class, you're looking at the itinerary. If you have a business partner like me, you guys are having meetings and you're like, we're both on the same page and aware of who's teaching what the expectations are. I know what I need to prepare. And I feel refreshed with all of that. So it's essential that you feel lit up about it, because that's going to translate, either you feel on fire and passionate and a light, or you feel just like dim and you're just showing up and kind of phoning it in. Your people can feel it. And it's, as you know, the difference is always energy. Energy is the difference. So take the time to get your vibe right. The third thing that I would say before is to book yourself some services. And I'm speaking from experience that I neglected to do this the last 2 years that we went to Sedona. I was like, oh, it's Sedona. I'm going to do a past life regression, right? Like, how cool does that sound? I've never had that service done. But I kept thinking that I could just show up and like waltz in for a past life regression in between the pockets of our retreat itinerary. And like, why would I think that that would be possible to do that? Every time the last 2 years, I would walk in and they'd be like, oh no, sorry, we're like all booked out for the weekend. And I was only there for a couple of days. So book yourself some services ahead, because in the same vein of getting your vibe right, remember, anything that you can do to kind of elevate the experience, just the more embodied, the better you feel, the better you're going to lead. So even though it's work, I mean, you're showing up obviously to facilitate, to be the guide. It doesn't have to feel like that. How blessed are we that we get to be in the position of traveling with our yoga teaching and creating this amazing container, of course, leading and teaching, but you have those pockets in that time to go do a past life regression, do a psychic reading, get your aura picture taken, get a massage, get a manicure and pedicure, whatever it is that's your thing. Book yourself a service so that you feel like you're living that like next level version that you dreamed for yourself. That's been key for me when I started to add that in. And I'm happy to say that this year I had the smarts to think. I just made it today. I did an intuitive reading at this, what is the facility called? If you all know this place, I'd be curious to hear your opinion of it, but it's called Gateway Cottage, a wellness center in Sedona. And I'm going to do an intuitive reading. I almost did a past life regression, but something was pulling me more to intuitive reading, of getting more answers about this life and what I'm currently working through instead of figuring out some past life stuff. But anyway, all that to say is book yourself some services. Do something that'll make you feel really bougie and to elevate not just the experience for your people, but the experience for you. And then the last thing under the before you go is last minute logistics. Make sure that at least a week, if not 2 weeks before, you're thinking, okay, what are like the last minute purchases that I need to make? For us, that's like making sure we have all of the guest gifts, that we have the gift basket or the gift bags with like the tissue paper, that we have a list of who's bringing the sound bowls, what aromatherapy are we bringing? Are you bringing the salt lamp? Am I bringing the salt lamp? Whose singing bowls are we using? Just all sorts of those things. So especially if you have a partner, make sure you sit down and talk out like what are all the things that we need and whose job is it to bring that, so that way you feel prepared. You don't feel like you're like scrambling or scrounging. And then we also made the plans of when, for the case of Sedona, since it's an Airbnb, we don't want there to not be food in the house. So we're like, okay, what time are we leaving from Las Vegas and driving there to get there in plenty of time to make sure that we can go grocery shopping, to make sure that we can get a delicious lunch as facilitators and be able to drop off our bag at our facilitator place and then go to the participant house to set up all the things, set up our little gift bags, write our participants their welcome note, all that sort of stuff. Just get super detailed and super clear of like the logistics, like what needs to happen, when does that need to happen by, and who does what. It will make a huge difference for you and make your nervous system feel so calm and capable. All right, so that's all the before you go. We had pump up your people, get your vibe right, book yourself some services, and last minute logistics. Let's move into the while you're there. I kind of was talking about this with the last minute logistics, but the biggest like hack or really like hot take that I could give you is to, especially if you've never been to this retreat location, make sure that you're arriving at least a day, if not 2 days early before your guests. This gives you tons of time to kind of get a lay of the land and settle in, and most importantly, rest up, like energetically recalibrate so that you feel nourished to then hold space, to give a lot, because facilitating a retreat, you give a lot, so you need to be super duper charged. For us, since it's our 3rd year going, we decided, we were like, okay, we don't really need the 2 days before, but the first time that we led a retreat here, we got there a whole day early, and that made such a difference. Well, actually, wait, no, this is what happened. Our first time that we led a retreat in Sedona, we showed up that day. That's why we implemented this, because we were like, oh, shoot, we did not do this right at all. And everything felt really rushed and chaotic. So basically we showed up maybe 2 hours before the itinerary like start time. And it just wasn't enough time to get all of our stuff put down and taken care of. And then all of the guest stuff set up. And then we felt like we've been like, when you do a long road trip and you just feel scuzzy, like you're like, I need to change my underwear sort of feeling, or you're like, my teeth feel like a peach, just scuzzy. And you're like, I don't feel ready yet. That's how it felt. We just felt like pushed into the whole experience. So make sure you show up and give yourself some time, especially if it's a new place. And think about it too. If you have certain things on your itinerary that's like in our Costa Rica retreat, one time we did a silent like hike and walk down the beach. And we wrote that on the itinerary, but we had never really been there. So when we got there the day early, we were like, okay, let's map out what this walk will look like. Let's go on this walk so that me as the leader, I actually know where I'm going instead of just like making it up along the way. So 1 to 2 days early, get there. It's the best. Then most importantly, while you're there, it's super helpful to have an assistant if you don't have a partner. So if you're solo leading the retreat, have somebody there that can help you with just those little tasks that come up in the moment, like running errands or tidying / setting up the space, someone to capture behind the scenes content on your phone, someone that's like updating the stories on your Instagram to capture the energy and feeling of the retreats, someone to kind of create little daily recap reels so that the posts are being taken care of by someone else, making you free and more available to be present to your guests. It's really crucial to have another person. And if you don't have maybe the money at this time to pay somebody to do that, you can have sort of like apprentices or mentorships, or maybe one of your students come and they could either pay basically just for their accommodations and their food, but you wouldn't necessarily be making any money off of them being there. That's a way that you can kind of bypass like having somebody to pay. And you could position it like you can come and kind of watch what it's like to facilitate a retreat. That might be like a little loophole for you to have an extra hand on deck for you. But it's really important because stuff pops up, and it's important for you to be able to be there for your people and not have to think about, just the logistics when it's time to actually like deliver the experience. All right. The next thing I would say, if you have it in the budget, is to hire a photographer. You could have both, an assistant and a photographer, or maybe you get the unicorn of like a photographer that's also willing to do some assistant duties. But they're two separate jobs technically, but maybe you can have one person kind of doing both. But a photographer is also really important, not quite as important as an assistant. But why photographers are great is because retreats are really incredible for content. Retreats are usually in beautiful locations, and your people have beautiful experiences. So you want to capture all of that so that you can use it for your marketing of either your next retreats or really just any of your workshops and offers. With that photographer, make sure you're very clear on what kind of shots or videos that you're looking for. And a way to be super clear is to actually just show them examples of what you like. So do some research on other retreat facilitators' Instagrams or websites and be like, I really like this angle, or I like the mood of this. The more tangible you can show them, the better and more close to that they can create. Also, explain to your photographer to be really mindful and respectful if participants are having an emotional release. You don't want it to feel invasive, in the sense that somebody is in a sharing circle and they're opening up about something and they're crying. You don't want the photographer to also like obviously be creeping up behind them and like video cameraing, or like you hear the click, click, click of the camera and it's like totally ruining the vibe. Make sure that you express to the photographer like, hey, just, like use your common sense and feel it out, and just don't make people feel unsafe, because more important is that people feel safe enough to be vulnerable than for you to capture that. And then if you are going to do this and have a photographer or a videographer, make sure that there's some sort of media release section in your contract, so that people are aware and giving you permission to take pictures, and that these pictures will probably be used in some of your marketing material. Then when you're actually in the opening ceremony or opening event, you want to introduce the photographer to everybody so that they're not like, who is this person? Like, that is so not what you want your people to be thinking of, like, who's that, creeping in the back. So introduce them and make everybody like know that person, feel comfortable with that person. And then also talk about how having the photographer means that they don't have to worry about taking their own pictures, so that it elevates the experience to feel more bougie and more awesome instead of awkward. They're like, oh, great. Like, I don't have to worry about capturing this because this professional photographer is capturing it. And I'm still going to get amazing memories captured by someone who is a professional. So that has worked really well for us when we're like, it's a perk, it's a benefit, and it's like a good thing that we have a photographer, because it makes you be able to be a lot more present and available to the experience. All right, next, I would say set clear expectations for your people, that while it's very much a vacation for them, that you're here to create experiences. So sometimes on retreats, your guests will 1000%, they want to spend time with you. A big reason why they're there is because of you. They want to deepen that relationship. They want to get to know you, and that's beautiful. And you should definitely be available to that. But sometimes you need a little bit of alone time. Or at least I found that, sometimes I just wanted to be able to review my lecture notes at the coffee shop or something. Instead of staying holed up in my room, I wanted to go out and get a coffee. But then if your participants see you sitting there, they're going to want to sit down and talk with you. So sometimes that you might have the space for that. Sometimes you might not be, in about an hour be teaching a class or leading a lecture or whatnot. But I've found that it's helpful to just say that at the beginning, that sometimes you might be out in public, but you're sort of preparing for the next thing to be able to lead an incredible experience for them. So if you do ask for that alone time, that it's nothing personal, but it's just so that you can make sure that you're providing a really awesome experience for them. So say it in the beginning so that they don't get butt hurt when you're like, I love you, but leave me alone. Then in general, remember to make retreats as experiential as possible. I think that my business partner and I, we have the love for lectures. We love to just like sit down and teach on topics, but save that for more of like your workshops. And you want retreats to be as much like, how much can you actually do? Okay, not sit down and learn about it or read about it or think about it, but actually do it, because these people are here in person. So make it more activity heavy, more embodiment heavy, more real life play that has them connecting, whether it's like eye gazing experiences or partner yoga or sound bath or like somatic shaking or like literally anything, but just more embodied, more experiential, not just so like sit and learn and stale and boring. Just don't be boring. All right. The next thing is to use the current retreat to sell the next retreat. Right? So while you're talking about this retreat and you're doing those daily recaps, whether it's to your email list, you're like writing up everything that you did that day, or you're making a really cool Instagram reel that recaps all of the day, have the call to action or the CTA to all of that copy, meaning the words that you write in your posts or emails, have the call to action be to join either the wait list for the next retreat, or if you have everything all set up and you're ready, start selling that next retreat during the retreat. Because when you're showing the energy of it, when you're in it, this creates tons of FOMO and people are going to want to take action while you're there. This will be completely game changer for you as a retreat facilitator. And just in general, with your yoga business, you always want to be thinking, what can I have planned, prepared, and ready so that all of my people who are in any service of mine, I need to have the next step for them so that they can stay in my energy, they can stay in my world, they can stay in my work. So just make sure that you have the systems set up, even if they're simple systems, for them to know how they can continue working with you and being with you. And that's a really easy way to do that, is to sell the next retreat at the current one that you're on. Ways you could do this is to offer exclusive and time-sensitive discounts to all of the retreat participants at the end. So one way that we do this with Retraka is we create a coupon code that expires 1 week after the retreat. So then we'll enter them into a nurture email sequence that kind of checks in with them around 5 days after the retreat, saying, hey, remember you've got that discount code to come on our next retreat. It expires in a couple of days. Make sure you're taking advantage of it. That's one way that you can do that. Ooh, okay. This is a big one. Block in. Are you ready? Write this one down. Block in time before the closing ceremony or before the last emotional event for your people to actually fill out your testimonial survey. What I do not recommend is waiting till the end, or even more so, what I definitely don't recommend is sending the testimonial survey or the form after they have left, because you will never, ever see that. Like they will never fill it out. Right? Like when they're gone, it's game over. So you don't want to be like hunting or tracking them down to fill it out, because that's annoying for you. That's annoying for them. So make sure you're actually like in your itinerary, notching in a specific time that's like, fill out the testimonial survey. And I really like to do it before the closing ceremony, because usually your closing ceremony is like super emotional, and something about it, you might feel differently, but something about it feels tacky to me to be like, cry your guts out, be really vulnerable. Now write nice things about me. So it's just not my style. So we do it before the closing ceremony. But if you feel like your closing ceremony is super impactful and you want people to kind of write about that, maybe you can do it in a way that feels less like icky, but that's just the way it's felt for us. So that's why I say do it before the closing ceremony, but do you, boo, whatever you feel like works. But the point is do it before they leave, because you won't ever get that back. All right, then here's just a little hack. The assistant or the photographer might be able to do this, but something that we found helpful is to create whatever you're posting to your stories on Instagram. You know how you can create those little like highlight reels or like add to highlight that then live on your Instagram page? Do that for each one of your retreats. So you'll have a little story highlight of your Sedona retreat 2024. That way, when you're in the season of selling your next retreats, in your stories, you can be like, hey, I actually have a story highlight of my Sedona retreat last year. Go check that out so that you can see what we got up to, so that you can feel what it's like to be on a Retreat retreat with us. That is going to help you sell smarter and not harder. Okay, super great hack. Okay, I think that's everything for the while you're there. We talked about arriving 1 to 2 days early before your guests, having an assistant, having a photographer, setting clear expectations for people that you're there to work and sometimes you'll need a little space. You want it to be really experiential. You want to use the current retreat to sell the next one. We talked about exclusive and time-sensitive discounts, when to position the testimonial survey and creating that highlight reel on your Instagram. That's all what to do while you're there. Next up, what do you do after it's over? Celebrate. That's the first and most important thing to do, is to just like give yourself a pat on the back, or in some way pop the champagne bottle, do something that makes you feel like you're acknowledging what a big deal it is to lead a retreat and to have people trust you enough to spend thousands of dollars on coming on a retreat with you. So good job. Make sure you celebrate. Treat yourself to some sort of lunch, get a drink, anything. Make yourself feel special, because you are really special. The next thing that my business partner and I do is we sit down and we give ourselves feedback. And we do this with everything. Our classes, I do this with my classes. I do this with my courses. Anytime I run a program, I'm sitting down and I'm thinking, okay, what went really, really well? If you listen to the episode with Eric Jeffers, it was what teachers are looking for when they're auditioning and hiring at studios. He kind of breaks down a feedback process, but in general, a simple way to think about it is just asking yourself 2 simple questions. What went really well? And what could I have done better? So sit down right after, while it's fresh in your memory, and write down what really landed. This could be the retreat theme, the book that you talked about, the class that you led, the things that you said, like what seemed to really resonate with your people and have an impact. Write all that down. Then think, okay, what on the flip side, what had a little hiccup, or what felt like a little bump, what felt awkward? Was something in the timing? Did it need to be shifted? Did we need more time here, less time there? Was the order funky? This way, you're kind of refining every single time. You're getting better and better. And then I wanted to say this in the beginning, but it wouldn't have made sense. Now that you know that you have feedback, let's say, for example, like me, you're doing a retreat multiple times in the same place. My business partner and I are referencing our feedback from last year. And that way we're building from an actual like informed notes of like, hey, remember, this was good, this was bad, and apply some of those learnings to the next experience, so that every retreat you are a better leader, every retreat the itinerary is smoother, and that it feels like it's progressively just like really dialing in, and like, as musicians say, getting in the pocket. Okay, that's give yourself feedback. Then I sort of mentioned a little bit with the time-sensitive incentives and bonuses, but you want to make sure that you have some sort of plan or strategy in place of following up with your participants on how they can take advantage of those offers. So don't just announce it at the retreat and be like, hey, here's a coupon code, and then expect them to remember. Once they do all the travel to get home and get back in their lives, it's difficult to remember. So it's your job to help them take advantage of that. Check in at least 2, if not 3 times, if it's a week long or maybe it's a month long. But the point is that you're kind of saying, hey, don't forget, you've got basically free money. Take advantage of it before you lose it. Check in with them. And the last thing that's a nice touch is to sort of plan a reunion call or some sort of reconnection call. This can help your people feel really supported, especially if your retreat and your teaching style is, hey, I want to give you something on this retreat that's not just for this moment, but that equips and empowers you for when you go back to regular life, which I would just recommend in general for your yoga teaching, to teach in a way that helps people heal themselves. And so this reunion call or like reconnection call just gives them that extra support or that extra accountability from you to check in and see how things are going, if they've embodied or implemented some of the strategies or the tools that they learned on the retreat experience. And it basically is just going sort of that extra mile to care for your people, to take care of their people and to say, how are things going? So get that on the books and be in contact with the people, whether it's in your WhatsApp chat thread that you created before the retreat or your email marketing software, but just be telling your people how and when you're going to reconnect. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you learned what to do as a facilitator before the retreat, during the retreat, and after the retreat to make the experience unforgettable for all people. Of course, your participants, but most importantly, you. You want to feel like you did an awesome job. And some of these things of how to get ready for it and what's kind of going on behind the scenes can make it feel really professional and make you feel really good about it. So let me know what was the biggest takeaway for you, the one that you didn't think about, and the one that you're definitely going to add in next time. I love hearing from each and every one of you. So please reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is Master Your Yoga Teaching. It's the same as the podcast. Send this episode. This is the most important. Send this episode to one of your yoga teaching pals. I would appreciate so much if you would help me spread the word about this podcast. And my mission is to help yoga teachers feel more supported and get more free education on how to do this yoga teaching thing as a profession, and to not feel like you just went to yoga teacher training and you were like stuffed with all of this information. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again because this is how I felt. And I just love the imagery. But I felt like in YTT that I just got slapped across the face with the Yoga Sutras and just like pushed out the door. Was like, wait, what just happened? So this podcast is here to help you feel like you're still in the energy of yoga teacher training, of continuing to learn how to be an amazing yoga teacher, to keep the inspiration to stay dedicated, committed, and passionate to show up for your students, and to hear from other trailblazing teachers how to do it in innovative ways that maybe you haven't thought about. So send this to your yoga teaching pals. And then lastly, my one last request for you, stop whatever you're doing right now and rate the podcast. Please, please, please rate it on Spotify or Apple, whatever you listen to. It would mean so much to me because the more ratings we have, the more status this podcast has, the more people actually see it as like a place to go to get really great information. And so it helps me continue to create free content for you. So do me a favor and do that. I love you. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for coming back each and every Wednesday, and I'll see you next week. Namaste, blessed. Thanks for listening. If this is your first time, peruse our feed to see if there's something else that will serve you. We're so grateful that you're here and invite you to join our inner circle by subscribing to our newsletter. If this episode resonated with you, help us spread the word by sending it to a friend who needs to hear this message. Likes, follows, sends, shares, and reviews help us to continue delivering high-quality content to you for free each and every week. Don't forget to tag @MasterYourYogaTeaching so we can reshare. I am a certified yogi. However, this podcast is intended for information and entertainment only. If you are interested in mentorship or coaching with me, check out the website linked in the show notes to get more information. This content and other content produced by CLW Studios and affiliated partners is not therapy, and nothing in this content indicates a therapeutic relationship. Any opinions of guests on the podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of Mackenzie or CLW Studios. Learn more about Mackenzie, her guests, and CLW Studios by following the links in the show notes. Keep shining, and we will see you next Wednesday for another dose of Master Your Yoga Teaching. Namaste blessed. I love helping yoga teachers stand out through skillful storytelling and theme weaving. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about Inspired Flow Monthly. Inspired Flow Monthly is the subscription that puts ready to go flows in your back pocket. So all you have to do is show up prepared and excited to teach yoga. Here's what you get each month. One cohesive class plan PDF, complete with dynamic sequences, curated playlists, one with lyrics and one without, and an inspiring theme for your next Vinyasa yoga class. That's really what makes the subscription stand out. One ridiculously short and sweet video tutorial of the sequences, one subscriber email that gives you all the deets. Inspired Flow Monthly is for the yoga teachers that are experienced, but out of creative juice and need to gas up. Busy, yet passionate about delivering memorable Vinyasa yoga classes. New, with a lack of confidence and an abundance of overwhelm. Needs help with understanding how to weave yoga philosophy without feeling super awkward, preachy, or random. Dislikes creating playlists and just wishes someone would do it for them. All about working smarter and not harder. Trust me, I get it. Teaching beyond the poses to the heart of yoga can be challenging. It's time-consuming to find the right inspirational material. That's what makes Inspired Flow Monthly so special. I've done all of the heavy lifting for you. I tell you exactly what to say and when to say it, so you show up prepared, polished, and relaxed. Inspired Flow Monthly is $27 a month, or get 2 months free when you subscribe for the year. Head to inspiredflowmonthly.com to sign up or click the link in the show notes. Still not convinced? Try before you buy and snag one free sample delivered within seconds of signing up. Head to inspiredflowmonthly.com now or click the link in the show notes. See you inside.